Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my presentation that is called The Hero's Journey, or How to Go Through Chaos and Finish a Project in Time. Before diving into the technical and artistic details of my work, I want to take a moment to talk about something universal, just the idea of a journey. As filmmakers, or just as human beings, we're all on some kind of journey. Whether it's sitting down to do your taxes or making a stop-motion film, the journey shapes who we are and what we create. For me, every project feels like embarking on a new adventure. One of my latest work that you can see, just a character, Coup de Théâtre, was one of those adventures. It was a 2-month sprint to make a stop-motion film. So in this talk, I want to explore a famous kind of journey that is called the hero's journey. It comes from the work of Joseph Campbell, who was an American mythologist, and he analyzed many myths and stories around the world and tried to find common ground and structures amongst them. This was later adapted by Christopher Vogler into a storytelling tool widely used in cinemas like for Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, The Lion King, and so on. Surprisingly, life mirrored these arcs in profound ways, and it can be found in everyday life as well. But let's start by the beginning. This is a 3D scan of me. I'm Antonin Niclass, and I'm a film director specialized in stop motion. In case you're unsure what stop motion actually is, let's have a look together. So this is not stop motion, this is slow motion. Now, what is stop motion? Stop motion is taking one picture, moving the puppets a little bit and taking another picture. And after many, many pictures, you get films like Wallace and Gromit. Here's a trailer I made for a film a few years ago. And it's using paper puppets. So for this film, we had to take around 6,000 pictures, and it took around a year to make. It's called Do Not Feed the Pigeons, and it's on YouTube if you want to have a look. So now that you know about the challenges of stop motion, let's talk about a challenge I faced recently. If we come back to our little chart, we start in the ordinary world. I'm just here sitting on the couch, maybe watching Netflix in my comfort zone, when suddenly I hear about a great opportunity. For the 20th anniversary of the Théâtre du Passage in Neuchâtel, they need to make a short video to celebrate their upcoming program. And the film has to be around 30 seconds. It will be broadcasted on social medias, in buses, cinemas, and train stations. The deadline is in 2 months. Usually this would take a bit more, especially if I'm working on my own without a community in stop motion, because I lived abroad before and I just arrived in Lausanne then. So this is my call to adventure. In pop culture, this is the equivalent. To find inspiration, I start by visiting this very scary fine art museum. And I fall in love with an exhibition about train catastrophes. There's this scene with tiny characters in a train model environment, and I just think it would look great in a stop-motion film. So I started designing a pitch. This is the actual mood board I brought to the theater to convince them to make this film. So I told them I wanted to make a stylized but recognizable version of the theater in small, using tiny characters that will display the diversity of both the program but also of the audience of the theater. So I decided on several shows this year that would be featured in the ad and try to gather characters from them. I make a storyboard with sound effect made with the mouse, and this is what I show them then. Quite basic, but so during that meeting, I also find out about the budget. And this is in the arc called The Refusal of the Call. Maybe I'd just rather stay on the couch a bit longer. Actually, I don't have a transition here, but I thought about it and I still need the money and it could be great for my portfolio, so I go for it. This is a crucial turning point from now on because you go into a world called the unknown. We leave the ordinary world and fully commit to the journey. This is the equivalent. So it really starts now. The first step I take is to order train model figurines online. And when I get them, they're really small. I don't know if you can see them. But basically, this is what I get. You can pass it around. So this is not working. Then I decide to 3D scan visiting friends. Jamie here. My original plan was to scan every character and every pose separately and use costume and actors to do it. And then print them all in 3D to animate them again. This is a terrible idea. I'm a bit lost at that moment and I'm still trying to figure out what will happen. So we enter the phase called Test, Allies and Enemies. I'm lucky enough to have my own Sam Gamgee, the brave here, which is Roel. He's a very smart ally and he gives me an idea for a clever pipeline. The idea would be to buy or find 3D models online that are already made, and then use a website to automatically animate them. This is the website. We can basically import any model on it, and then there's a library of movements, so it can make anyone a good dancer, for example. Kind of. So that's what we go for. We isolate pose we need. So from the movement, the whole movement, we select 4 poses to print. And this is basically the principle of animation. The minimum you can go for a walk cycle is just left, right with 4 frames. Someone gives me a really bad 3D printer. And it goes bad. I break it every time I try to unmold it, and we make many tests. I can now establish this 3D printer is my enemy. After many tries and errors, we get a first test of what it could look like. This is still really rough. Okay, let's just take a small detour here, because what Vogler called Test, Allies, and Enemies is actually called by Campbell the phase of challenges and temptation. This is very relevant because at that moment I get a call from the Spanish embassy in Cuba, and they're inviting me for over 10 days all-inclusive to screen my film around the country. An offer I really can't refuse. So I pack my bag and I take my computer, and on the way in the plane, I try to learn about this software called Blender, where you can model 3D. but this is the kind of blender I encounter instead. Yeah. We work real hard. Actually, we're on the road a lot to screen the film, and my producer sleeps most of the time. So I get a lot of time in the car to actually work on the film. And the first thing I do is to try to find the minimum amount of poses I need for the film. So for a walk cycle, it's 4, but sometimes for other characters, I need different actions. We now enter the phase called the approach. We're getting ready to face the biggest challenge. I find a 3D printer specialist in Morges, working in a farm, and he agrees to print 250 characters for when I come back from Cuba. And this is how it looks like from the oven. It's actually resin printer, so it's like liquid and it solidifies at certain points. And he still needs to clean them and pass under UV lights to solidify. But when I come home, I realize he printed everything twice too small. So this is the size he made, and it's really difficult to paint and to see. So not gonna lie, at that moment I really lose face. This is the major crisis. In the chart it's called the ordeal. It's symbolic death. This is the kind of phase where you don't know why you're doing it anymore. You dedicated your whole life to filmmaking and you don't see it going well. Maybe it's time to stop playing with train figurine at that point. There's less than 3 weeks to finish it now. Suddenly, in just 2 days, Omer, the 3D print guy, manages to reprint everything the right size and clean everything. In other words, at this point, another ally joins the journey. My friend Eve is a set designer. She worked on Game of Thrones a lot, and she was actually just printing 3D sets in miniature for them to check if it would work in big. She got really bored of it after a few months, but she agrees to print a bit more for us. So we observed the place really well to try to find recognizable pattern and make sure some elements look similar. I really don't recommend building a whole set at your house, but this is how it started. So now we enter the phase called the reward. After surviving the ordeal, we gain a reward or insight. This could be knowledge, an object, or realization that maybe it can work. I think from that moment we see a possibility of it working, and it's really reassuring. So Guillaume, the camera guy, try to find angle, and we test some lights at home without actually having lights. The next phase is called the road back. The heroes, aka a very unorganized filmmaker, begins the return to their normal world, but the journey isn't over yet. New danger arise. Because we still have 250 characters to paint, we have a set to assemble, to light up, and everything else, from animation to editing, sound design, music, color grading, export, and everything. So gladly I get the help from many allies, friends and family. Each paints one character and all its poses. The deadline is now in 8 days. There's still no film at this point. We set foot in Helium Studio, which is the only stop-motion studio in Lausanne. And they give us a good price to occupy the space a few days. We start setting up the lights, adjusting the set and the sky. when you're in a rush, you really don't have time to make a big sky, so you just move it around. And this is the stage called Resurrection. After some sleepless nights, this is the final test or battle where you must prove yourself. All the teaching from the journey will finally pay off if you go through this stage. I now have 3 boxes full of characters, and I have to put them one after the other on set for the story to take shape. Okay, the shoot is done. I'm so happy, but I can't really enjoy the moment because we still have much more to make. Now it's time for sound design. Henry here creates a great soundtrack for the film, and Fabio composes the music. I asked him to create something where every character from the theater would have its own sound universe, but the challenge is to make all these different music merge together in such a small amount of time. So this is the final stage. It's called the return with the elixir. We return home, transformed, bringing back wisdom or a gift to share with others. In pop culture, this is it. So the film starts screening in cinemas, buses, and train stations. And we're selected to some very cool festivals around the world. Okay, maybe now it's actually time to show it. So in the end, I think just knowing about the cycle helps me a lot on my current projects in time of great despair. Because I know that you always go through chaos to transform, and there's always that moment where everything feels impossible, where you doubt yourself completely. But if story has taught me anything, it's that this phase isn't the end, it's just part of the journey. To end with, the hero's journey is often shown as a cycle, returning to where we began. But even when we come back, we're never quite the same. Each challenge, each struggle, each story changes us. We return, but with something more. So maybe it's not really a cycle after all. Thank you for listening. When?
Where and when?
I think the first time was when I got my neighbor had a Lego set from Spielberg. It was a special Lego set with a tiny webcam. And we started using just figurine then. I really enjoyed it. I think I was maybe around 9 or 10. and I just continued making it a bit at home until I wanted to really specialize in it. Yeah, I don't know.
Did you intentionally document the culture?
No, I usually take a lot of pictures in everyday life, so I just had to gather them at the end. But no, well, I always take picture of everything, so it was easy. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, that was really inspiring. And apart from your talent in filmmaking and storytelling, you seem to have a talent in allies, to find really good allies. And I noticed a few people there, like I guess they were key to you. So can you explain a little bit more about that and how you, especially when you're at the bottom, because I guess you don't have a lot of energy there, how can you then inspire people to join your project when you're at the bottom?
Good question. I think, first of all, this is really a directed job to know who to work with. And in my studies, I didn't learn much about techniques, but more about working with every department. So you have to trust them enough that you know they're gonna do a better job than you, because they're specialized in something particular. But you still have to have enough material to know how to talk to them and work together. I don't know where I was going with this, but
can I interrupt you? And that's for sure that you need to trust them. But how can you convince them? The woman there who worked in Game of Thrones, it's a much bigger production than yours. How can you convince her to join your project? I mean, you don't probably have a lot of money to give her, right?
No.
How do you get that involved? It's not something you learn. It's something in your skills.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's mostly friends that I worked with before. And for example, I think here they were really excited to. I think on Game of Thrones she has really small role, and she was really excited to do animation and join a project where she could really experience and experiment a lot. And this is the case for most people who joined. I don't think I can, because for example the painters, I just paid sushi for them. I don't think I can do it again. Next time I have to pay them, but it worked once. Yeah. Yes.
I think like similar to what Mark is trying to think about. I think a big part of CreativeMornings is the community, right? So for us, what is super nice on top of everything is that you have your talents locally. And I wonder, like, first, maybe I don't know anything about stop motion, and maybe it's the hugest thing in Switzerland, and then just never it's not necessarily the impression that we have. So does that mean like all these prizes and awards, does that mean that it's a jump for something bigger? Like, do you aim to go to Hollywood one day, or this is something that is growing? Like, how is that whole perspective of you being here and this maybe not being the hugest creative place for it?
Yeah. So actually, I studied in the UK, and there the stop motion community is much bigger, because there's Wallace and Gromit. There are also many ads for Christmas that are made in stop motion. So coming back in Switzerland, I took a long time to actually find those people, and the stop motion community here is so small. But I think it also makes you connect really fast with them, because once you get to know them, it's easy. You have common ground. And now slowly it's building up. The problem is that stop motion is very expensive, and advertisements are more often in 3D, like Migros recently, or so if you need an ad and you have a big budget for it, you can try stop motion. But yeah, I think the community is growing, and there's actually now a good school in Lausanne that does stop motion. So there's more and more people, and it's really nice to see. Yeah.
I was just wondering, during the books, have you ever heard there is about the sort of figures and everything? There's like a huge world, they call it Wonderland Miniature or something.
Yeah.
Hamburg. So you have all they're building basically up all the world.
Yeah, there's one in Switzerland as well.
There's one in Switzerland.
In Ticino, I think.
Yeah. So this is like a setup, and they also, because they print
Yeah.
They painted and everything, so.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the idea, but we needed to use theater characters. Yeah. At first, my first idea was to make the whole town of Neuchâtel before I knew the budget. Yeah. Wait, yeah.
How much do you reuse on the sets? Like, I would assume you reuse the same components, no, if you do multiple, or is that because you just recently?
Sorry, how much did I
How much
reuse?
of the set do you reuse?
You mean if I kept it after the film?
Exactly. Or is that just because you moved, you didn't reuse existing?
I feel like every project is so different that you often have to rebuild again. Also, I mean, the theater looks great, but I didn't like the trees. I didn't like many things in it. But yeah, we could reuse it, and I tried to keep at home a bit of items like that could be reused. But this was actually, that's a good question, because the theater, we brought it to the real theater, and it's now, if you go there, you can see it. We made a little exhibition with all the characters. So I could not reuse it unless I shoot there. Yeah.
Have you managed to capture the motion of like a bird flying in the air if it cannot be in the air?
Yeah, so this was the case with the aviator. And we just used an aluminium wire and then deleted it.
But you're like moving each little wing.
Yeah. I could actually just scan it and do it with the computer going like this, but I feel like I have much more aware of the movement if I do it frame by frame. Yeah.
So you mentioned not necessarily liking the trees. I think the production is great for the time and budget that you had, certainly. But what would you have done differently, or how would you have liked it to look compared to your initial vision?
Good question. Yeah, I think in the end there's a bit of roughness that goes with the style because the characters are so jumpy. And for me, the really tricky part is that I left some blue tack under every feet. I don't know if you noticed. And if doing it differently, I think I would have taken some time to remove it. But also I think differently would be to pay people the right amount. Yes?
This might be a really personal question, but you mentioned budget. In the end, after all of this was done, did you end up making it?
No. No, the budget was under 10K.
Wow.
And it should have costed around 70 minimum.
Wow.
And I tried to pay the head of departments a bit, but yeah. And I found out later that they had a bigger budget to promote the film.
Oh no.
Which is cool because then it goes to the cinema and buses and train station, but yeah. Yes?
How was it to work with the as well?
Yeah, it was quite easy. Actually, I have my partner who works there, so it was a good way to enter the thing. And the director was really, not like you can hear in advertisement where clients are being really difficult. He just went like, yeah, it's good. Okay, let's go. But also, I mean, with this budget, he couldn't really complain. Yeah.
Well, when you are in the dead phase, the most hopeless stage,
Yeah.
do you have ways to remind yourself that it's gonna be okay eventually? Like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I just try to think about that it always gets better at the end, and if it's not the end, then if it's not better, then it's not the end. You know? But no, sometimes it's tough. I mean, it's part of the job as well. But yeah, but I guess being surrounded with people who can drag you when you don't believe in it, then it's good as well. Yeah.
I love the tactility of stop motion and seeing the set. How does kind of this format in your mind compare or contrast to like everything is super CGI now? Everything's so automated, slick, shiny.
Yeah.
And this is like a very raw art. How has that been for you?
I mean, this is what I really like about it, is just to be surrounded by your characters instead of being on a computer. And this is not from the viewer's perspective, but the maker's perspective. It's really different because you really feel close to your characters because you just move them around. And but yeah, it's often difficult to defend stop motion over CGI because also it's more expensive. You need a whole crew, you need a space, lights, when you could have way less people on. But yeah, I see it as kind of like cinema mixed with fine art or something, and just I found the creativity of it very different. But also I don't know how to do CGI, so it's easy to say. Yes.
How much time do you need to recover physically and mentally?
Good question. For this one, it was quite all right. But for my pigeon film that you saw earlier, it was quite exhausting, and I think I took I didn't make a film in a few months or the first year. Yeah, it took really a long time to find strength to create my own project again. I think it was easier to work on other people's film then, because you can really relax. When you're directing your own film, you don't stop at night. It's all the time. But on other people's film, you can really stop at 6 and yeah. Yes?
What's the biggest challenge you face when you come up with a concept and then you have to transfer it into something that's really tangible and then to be able to communicate it and market it to other people?
Yeah, for me, the screenwriting phase is really the most difficult. And so for the longer film, I had a screenwriter, and it was so helpful because you actually bounce ideas rather than just being on your own. And also it's at every stage of filmmaking, when you have someone who show you something, you can have an opinion on it. But if you did it, you have no distance and you cannot tell if it's good or bad. So I think at every stage, that's why I love to collaborate, because you get a lot of animators who like to do the whole film on their own. But I rather have all the people I can to really bounce ideas. And how to shape the ideas, I think it's just, trials and error. First on paper with text, and then I try to go quickly into the storyboard phase, because then I can really edit it and see if it's working or not. And bit by bit, it's building like that. Yes?
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I would be curious because, I work within creative arting and also some film on the side. So how was the journey for you to rediscover that in Switzerland? And do you potentially have any tips or any fun discoveries where the filmmakers or artists are hanging?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I try to find more and more events, even in Lausanne. Like, this is really animation based, but there's a lot of drink and draw. So you just go to the bar to drink, to draw together and drink. And also I try to reach out, when I came back, I tried to reach out to animation studios and visited some. But also festival. I'm not always a very networking person, but I got to meet, especially if you have one person who can bring you to other person. In festival, like in Switzerland, we have 2 really good animation festivals. If you want to have a look, it's called Animatu in Geneva and Fantoche in Baden. But this is really animation based, but you have so many festivals. You can meet people. Yeah. Yes?
What inspires you, and do you have any
Um, I read a lot about filmmakers' routine and how they wake up every day at 4 a.m., start writing for 5 hours, and then have one coffee. And I'm really unorganized, so I don't think I really find creativity in routine. For me, it's more sleepless night that works. But I try to have a more healthy everyday life. But
what inspires you then? From where you find inspiration?
yeah, I think just watching people a lot. I think so. The film you saw the trailer from is based on a coach station in London, and for it we just went with the screenwriter to spend the whole night. And we just take notes, take pictures, make drawings of everything. And yeah, just seeing the people was so inspiring then. And the film is about just the travelers you can see there. So I think it's a big inspiration for me. People and maybe solitude and melancholy. Yes?
So stop motion is your full job or you have other projects?
This is my full job. When I don't direct, I work on other people's film. And also I give a lot of workshop to kids or adults of stop motion. So yeah, there is a Pôle Sud at the station. To kids, there is a Festival Cinéma Jeune Public, which has every year a lot of workshop. And what else? And we're trying with other animators from Lausanne. We're trying to build a workshop concept where we could just have material and bring them anywhere, and anyone could order like a 2 hours or 5 days workshop soon.
Cool.
Yes.
I'm really passionate about stop motion. When I was kid, I remember Clash of Titans when there was no CGI at the time.
Yeah.
And I even work in a stop motion in my university, although I never worked professionally.
Yeah.
So this was one of the things that I always have. I have a platonic passion about this. I just wonder, you seems to be much younger to me. Like we mentioned here, this is an art almost like very, very physical. You need to have a space. You need to have toys and a lot of time. It's almost like an ancient kind of word. How do you get connected with this? Do you remember you have somebody that teach you, or what was the attractiveness that drive you to choose to work in this kind of specific?
I think being an only child, it was the most easiest thing to make film on my own, because I tried to do live action a bit, but I don't like actors. So this was easy, because you could just then create your universe and create your characters. And I also really like the fact that just by having an object in stop motion, you're already telling something, because it's just not a phone, it's a phone made out of something. And for me, this was the really exciting part. But space-wise, it's always tough to find a space to work in. At the moment, it's in the bathroom. We have a small stop motion studio there. But yeah, I think the excitement came from the tactility of it. Yes?
So, thank you for sharing your story and journey. How do you secure funding for different projects, especially in such a smaller community or market like Switzerland?
So, at first I hesitated if I should stay in the UK, because the stop motion community is bigger there. But also I found out, since it's smaller here, but there's the same amount of money from the cultural office, then I thought I would have more chance to finance my film here. But what I really found out is when you make a film in 1 year at school, it takes more like 2 or 3 years here, because just the funding part is so slow, because you have to apply for development, then you get maybe money to write the script and make the storyboard, and then you have to apply again to shoot the film. And there are also 3 or 4 institutions where you can get money. So gathering all the money takes so long. Did it answer the question?
So it's just, is it mainly kind of public federal sources, or do you rely on other sources to? I'm just curious how.
Yeah, no, it's so there's regional funds, which is called Cineforum, and there's the cultural office, which is state money, and there's also sometimes Loterie Romande. But if you know any very rich people, good try. Yeah. I don't like crowdfunding too much because in the end it's just your grandma giving you. But yeah.
Okay. He's very modest, but his pigeon, the Don't Feed the Pigeons won a BAFTA, right? Wow. Yeah, so he's not just like... So no, it's super, super impressive, and it's great to see the work that goes behind it.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Hopefully your investors also see the work behind and can increase the budgets for you. Thank you to our sponsors. So we have a lot of local sponsors, but we have a global sponsor, which is Adobe. They are a great fit for us. It's a very creative space. And something that they just launched is a quick, easy to create anything app. It's called Adobe Express. It's free to use, and it's already included if you have the Adobe Creative Suite. But you can plan your content, create really fast content, post stories, everything. So I haven't tried it out yet, but seems pretty cool. And Adobe Suite is always very professional and easy to use. So, well, not always easy to use, but but great results and very professional. And thank you to our local sponsors. So we have Sleepy Bear, filtered coffee. So thank you to the team at Sleepy Bear for giving us our coffee for this morning to keep us staying awake. And we also have Trigo. I didn't get the breakfast yet, but I can see like a million boxes. They always send a million amazing treats, but they are located Sugach, and also they have they have not an office. They have another space, Mangio Bevo, Avenue de France. So they have 2 spaces, and they have really nice like lunch, breakfast options, and a great founder that also did one of the Creative Mornings talks last year, and his talk is online. And we have Gotham, of course. So raise your hand if this is your first time here at Gotham. Cool. Welcome. I know we're not in this space. This is a bit of a weird like side space, but during breakfast, you were able to see a bit of their space. And if you're interested in learning more about them, feel free after the event to also talk to someone at the front, and they can give you a tour and let you know what they have to offer. But they have day passes, private offices, meeting rooms, and yeah, a lot of different interesting spaces. So thank you to Gotham.